We're just waiting for it to go live here. It's just taking a minute. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual View this morning. To go live here. It's just taking a minute. Oh, hang on. I need to mute myself. There we go. All right. Sorry. Technology. We've had lots of technology things this morning, very interestingly enough. So here we are, though, nonetheless. Good morning and welcome. I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Kim Wilkinson, as well as Sheila Shorten. And I also have a beautiful guest to introduce to you all today, whose name is Diane Quartly. And it's so fascinating. You know, Diane and I actually first met years ago at a meditation studio, and then recently reconnected first on Facebook on a post that came across my feed. And then we ended up a week later in the exact same 3-day workshop, which was super cool. So I'm super excited to have her on today's show. And so to give you just a little bit of background, because I'll let her introduce herself, but Diane is a best-selling author. She's also an energy interpreter, an evidential medium, and a mindset coach. So welcome, Diane.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be on here today.
Yeah, we're so excited that you're here. So maybe we could start. Do you want to tell us all a little bit about yourself, about who you are, what your story is, and anything you feel called to share?
Sure. Well, I started doing mediumship about 2015. Before that, I had a tragedy hit my family. So like many mediums, I started speaking the language of mediumship after my son passed. I realized at the time that I could connect after wanting to try to connect. You know, like so many people, you have a tragedy in your family and you start to think about spirituality. You start to think about connecting and how you can stay connected to your loved ones. And it was after my son's death that I was able to take some time to give myself permission to ask myself questions about what I thought spiritually and how it affected my life. And from there, it just kind of took off. I went to a workshop in 2014, I believe it was, and thinking, oh, I'm going to go. I was really interested in mediumship and trying to connect. And I went to this workshop, and it was this morning, the day of the workshop, I kept getting these hits, I call them, but during the day, the lady that was running the mediumship workshop kept talking about how mediumship worked. And I'm like, well, I do that. Well, doesn't everybody do that? Like I was looking around the room and I couldn't figure out. I was like, she's teaching us how to just live life. Like this isn't mediumship. This is what I do all the time. So I recognized at that point that I was actually doing it and just didn't know because I had been doing it my whole life. In our family, I had a grandmother that was very intuitive and we just knew grandma knew things. But so that's how I kind of grew up. I didn't speak the language of it and didn't have the labels for it, but our family had always grown up and I had always lived my life connecting to spirit and just not realizing it. So that's how I came into recognizing what I was doing and being able to speak the language of it, use the terms that mediums and the energy world kind of uses, but had been doing it all along. So that's a little bit of background of how I kind of got into it.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I think like, I don't want to speak for everybody, but like that totally resonates for me on the level. I don't consider myself a medium. I've had moments of mediumship, but that part about, you know, we often just don't realize that we've been doing it our whole lives, right? Because it's the most natural and innate thing to us, right? Until all of a sudden, you know, we decide to kind of, you may maybe focus in or hone in a little bit. And then we're like, oh, wait a minute, right? Yeah, Kim,
my husband had told me for years, since we had met in grade 10. But he's told me, Diane, you see things differently. Or when something would come up, imagine being on a school board or a hockey board. That I was on the hockey board for years and being able to see 3 steps ahead of things. So I was not always the most popular person. A lot of people, I was, as a kid, you're a know-it-all. And, as you're getting older, you're in these groups where people are like, why are you being devil's advocate? Why do you always, think the worst of people? I'd be like, can't you see what's happening here? Like there's an agenda here. And people couldn't see it, and I couldn't understand that. And my husband would always say, Diane, you see things better than other people, or you can tell, or your intuition tells you things. And I could just never figure that out, because I was like, why does nobody else around this table see what's happening here? So, yeah, I think it can be difficult for people as you're growing up and you're really highly sensitive or highly intuitive, and not have a conscious awareness of it, right? And be able to go, oh, this is what's happening. So, in studying, and after my son passed, I read everything I could. I watched everything I could. I, researched mediumship as best I could. And just because I was interested in it, but it was through all that I recognized, oh, this is a skill, or this is something that, a person can tune into better than somebody else. And that there are people that I lovingly call the walking dead, walking around the world, just sort of reacting to energy and everything, but not consciously knowing what they're doing. And, good on them that they can do that. But I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to connect, and I wanted to be able to control it. I'm a control freak, so control it a little bit and consciously focus it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'd like to actually connect some dots here, because you have interesting connections or similarities, we could say, in your story with both Kim and Sheila, who are here. And so Sheila, if I go to you first, as we talk about, how mediumship opens up and how that works for you, what's kind of resonating for you, and what's happened in your experience, or what's been different?
Well, first of all, I was really excited for you to come, because you don't often get to talk to other mediums. It's not a common thing to find another to chat to. But the thing that really fascinates me is that when I started doing it, I thought, why isn't everyone else doing this? I thought the exact same thing. I was just like literally watching these mediums on a YouTube channel over and over, and I was fascinated with what they were doing. And I'm like, wait a minute, I do that too. And I just sat on my friend's couch and I said, you know what, I think I can channel, because I do it anyways. So I think our stories are similar that way. I'm curious about how your messages come in, because mine come in a certain way. I'm curious how your messages, like you were talking this morning before that you saw this big T coming in. And I'm just curious, I'm really fascinated how your messages come forward for you.
So for me, when I started really studying mediumship, I had a couple of mentors that did it fairly technically. So I started trying to technically do it the way that they were showing me they could do it. And so part of mine comes from that. But really, at the end of the day, I started doing my own thing. And I always say that going to my own inner being and connecting to source, for me, is the best way to do it. So I go to different workshops, I go to different things to learn different techniques, but I always seem to come back to my own. So I think everybody does it differently, but we all kind of do it the same, right? We all tune in through our higher self, which is within. So when I am going to sit in mediumship, I will pull my energy in, and then I open my energy up and out. And then spirit, my superpower is claircognizance. So I just get information dropped to me, like groups of information. So, but I do see, hear, sometimes smell, which isn't great. So all my clairs are kind of on fire, and I can pick up different ways. Clairvoyantly, I can see things. Like this morning, I'm walking around and I just kept seeing big T, but I kept hearing it too in my mind, and my son's name was Travis. So I thought, okay, well, that's a new way for you to come through. But then finding out that Kim had a son and they used to call him Big T. So I was like, okay, so it can come to me that way, just sort of dropped information to me. Sometimes I wake up during the night with just something in my mind. So I have a pad of paper beside me and I just write it down. I try to, that very rarely happens for me, because I'm like I said, I like control. So I have spaces. When I sleep really well. That's one thing, that I sleep really well. So I tend to say, okay, spirit, if somebody wants to get in contact with me, not while I'm sleeping. So I don't do a lot of that, but I will get things that through dreams that will come through, and I'll wake up and just write something down and sort of release it and go that way. But when I'm sitting with a client and I'm sitting across from them, spirit comes to me here. My son stands behind me now and works with me, the son that I lost. So I can connect with him as the 6-year-old he was when he passed, as the 30-year-old that he would be now, kind of stands behind me and works with me. And then I also feel him as a higher energetic, wisdom, wise being over there. So they set in different places for me. So I know that who I'm connecting to or what version of my son I'm connecting to. But when I do mediumship, especially if I'm dealing with a client who has lost a child, Travis will stand behind me here. So I'll hear things from him directly, but the information just comes to me in different ways. When I do connect to someone, a spirit, like, you mind, your son is coming through right now.
Yeah, that's okay.
Kim. So right away when he comes through, you can see I'm looking up because he's standing here. He was a tall kid. Well, to me, everybody's tall, but he feels like he was a taller boy, all boy, like manly man, like, he, see, I can feel him. Have you had your hair pink before, Kim? Or have you thought of having your hair pink before?
It was purplish before.
Purple, okay, because he said the blue's really cool. But he likes the pink or the purple color.
Well, purple was his favorite color.
Okay, that's what he's showing me, because he's just like, the blue is really cool. It's electric blue and stuff, but he said the pink is very, so I'm trying to show you sort of, he's coming through, but he's coming through on this side of me. So he's right here and I pull him close. But then when I talk to him, he's going up here. So I tend to get information here from him, but I can see him standing here. Broad shoulders. He had shoulders. He's a big shouldered guy. He also, there's something about his room. Did he have a headboard on the back of his bed?
In some places, yeah.
With the ledge, like there was and it was a brown headboard with the ledge. I don't know why he's taking me to the brown headboard with the ledge. I think there was a picture or something either to the side of that or sitting on the ledge that he wants to talk to. And it's a picture of him, or that somebody has a brown, it feels like a ledge or a brown headboard with a picture of him. And he's like, I look really handsome in that picture. Like he likes that picture. There's something about that picture.
Might be his grad picture.
It feels very like, yeah, formal. Feels very formal. So that would make sense. He also is telling me that there's something that you're doing there's something that you're considering right now. And he's saying, take more time to think about it. There's a big step. There's something that you're considering right now. I'm asking him, can we share? And he says, no, it's kind of private right now. She hasn't shared it with anybody, or there's something going on, but she said only a couple people know. But he said, consider more, or take more time to consider. Does that make sense to you?
It does. I'd have to think about it to narrow it down, because there's always so many things.
Okay. It has to do with partnerships, and it has to do with you and your work. He says your work. He's doing it like this. I don't know why he's saying your work. So
because my work doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, maybe that's it. He's got a great laugh. I have to tell you, he has a fantastic laugh, and he had a lot of friends. I feel like you said he played football, so that could be part of it. But I also feel like he was well known, or he had a lot of friends, but not super close friends. Like he's telling me, I kept my super close friends close, but he had a lot of acquaintances. He's just, I don't want to go full on because he's like, I'm not done with you yet. So, okay. He's a little bossy. I have to tell you, he's a little bossy. He feels like he wants to tell you that he's really good, and that something, his chest doesn't hurt anymore. So I don't know if that had to do with his accident, or if he had
a big surgery. Yeah, he had
Okay.
tumors removed from his heart and lungs. Pretty invasive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like a football injury or something, because he's just making me feel like, I feel like almost like an impact, or like there was a, something with the chest, a lot of pressure. And he's saying my chest doesn't hurt anymore. So he wants you to know that. He also is telling me that, do you really like his handwriting, or is there something different about his handwriting, or is there something that, similar to yours? Because
Yeah. It is similar.
he's bringing me to a note or something that he wrote.
A journal.
Does he keep a journal? Because I felt like I wanted to say like poetry or something like that, like something that, you know, a tough football player kind of wouldn't actually do, but it feels like poetry or something that he's doing like that. So yeah. So if he does journal, there's something specific, 23, 23, 23. I don't know what the 23 is about, if it's page 23 or if there's something about 23 in there, but it's to do with the journal. So maybe check page 23.
Okay.
There might be a message for you,
Mhm.
like for you to consider in there.
Okay.
Page 23. Unless it's something else, but it feels like it's handwritten by him. Something 23, page 23. So I'll leave that for you. You have to let me know what that means, but he's yeah, he's a fun-loving guy, you can tell, but he had authority. Like I feel like he had authority, like he was a kid that was very in tune with who he was and had
Towards the end.
had a strong will and authority. And he's just sending lots of love to you. He says he's good and he's fine and he loves that you're doing this. He said, he just said, let my mom talk now. So, so I think
we are pretty close. Yeah. Yeah. So I can relate very much like you. He died in 2019 of overdose. And I knew at that time, I had two options, right? I could heal or I could suffer. And I knew that suffering is not a place where we can connect. You know, at that point, I think I was, you know, communicating with spirit in different ways. So by choosing the path of healing and very much like you, taking different courses and trainings and diving deeper into healing and meditation, I was able to find just a whole new relationship with him. And we do work together. He shows up during healing sessions, and like I said before we came on this morning, I've been getting just these nudges. My lights flicker whenever I need to sit down and listen to some messaging, and I didn't have some time on the weekend, so I know there's some information that's coming or needs to come. But
and it feels like he really wants you to contemplate it quite a bit before you act or move on it. This is that he's
yeah, I definitely need to drop in to get some clarity.
He keeps showing me a football. Do you have his football?
I have, I actually have his glove and caps and jersey, a few little things. Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't have much when he died. Like he was 22, so he had lived on his own for a few years, right? So yeah.
22, of course he was 22. How many kids and people, you would be shocked at how many, well, you guys wouldn't because you get it, but how many people that I meet and read for who have had children that have passed on the 22nd of a month. My son died on the 22nd of August. And at the graveyard where my son lays right next door is a teenager who passed on the June 22nd. Like there's so many. 22 is a big thing. So I see why they're connected now to why he's coming through. He came through so easy this morning. Certainly if we were having, and this is the thing, you know, I'm off topic here, but if we were having a private reading, I would pull that in a lot closer and get a lot more information. In a setting like this, I'm just trying to, I'm actually trying to be aware of how I'm pulling it in, because we were talking about that, Sheila, about how I'm pulling it in. So, but he's standing here in front of me, but I'm hearing information here. So I guess that's how I kind of work. I was distracted while I was talking to you because I'm like, well, how is this working? I've never really thought about it. It just all happens for me. And I don't think about it technically, but it always comes to my right side here it looks to the left, but to my right side. And they stand in front of me, but I get the information sort of behind me, my right.
I'm curious, do you get a lot of messages from your son?
Pardon me?
Do you get a lot of messages from your son? Do you find it easier? Do you find it easier to receive messages from your son from someone else?
My son and I play all the time. We banter back and forth. I tease my other boys. I have 3 boys, and Travis was my middle son. And my other boys are, my oldest is 32 and my youngest is 29. They're very close in age. Travis would have been 30. And I often tease them that I connect with Travis and talk to Travis more than I do them, because they're off living their life and doing their thing. And Travis is here with me all the time and every day. So, you know, I do talk to Travis a lot, and I do play with him. We play a lot. You know, he sends me different signs. I ask him for specific things. You know, he works with me that way. So to hone my own skills, I practice with him a lot. I'll say, you know, today, can you show me yellow, the color yellow in a really unique way? I did that one time when I was in Mexico, and I told my niece who was with me about it. And I said, today we're going to see a lot of yellow, but we're going to see it in interesting ways. And that day we were walking down to breakfast, and there was 3 yellow flowers, big, huge yellow flowers just on the path in front of us. And we're like, okay, that's pretty good. Okay, what else? And then, you know, we're laying on the beach later, and it seemed like everybody was, there was so many people wearing yellow that day. We were laughing about it. We were like, okay, but you know how you see a red car and you'll see red cars all day. So we're like, it's got to be better than that, buddy. And all of a sudden this guy comes walking down the beach in like a yellow bikini, you know, and it, bright, like fluorescent, and walks right by us. And we're like, all right, well, that's pretty unique, and you know, something shocking for us. So off he goes. And then we said, and then in the afternoon we were just laying in on our on the beach, and all of a sudden this little yellow bird comes under our palapa and flies around the palapa a couple times, you know, with the whole total yellow underbelly and stuff. So we play things like that, you know, and I'll ask for specific things. One time whenever I mow my lawn, I'll say, okay, buddy, bring me a butterfly, but I'll ask for a specific color. And then one will always show up. You know, even one day I even asked for a black one, and there was one that was so dark brown that it was almost black. And I was like, pretty good, very good, you know, things like that.
It's always great to get those signs.
Yeah. And I ask for them. Like I say, we communicate, and I practice it a lot with him. So, and that's the thing. And I tell people, that's what I like to tell people when they're doing when I do mediumship. And one of the messages I always like to tell people is, you don't have to be a medium. You don't have to be psychic to get these things. You just have to be aware of them. Ask and then receive, ask and receive. And wanting and receiving are 2 totally different energies. So if you're sitting and you're constantly wanting, you're going to miss it, because you're not in the receptive mode, as Abraham Hicks says, right? It's like you have to be able to receive it. So it's a practice, I think, in trusting, putting it out, asking for it, and then sitting and receiving the message and allowing yourself to trust that you're going to get it. That's a big key. But anybody can do this. I really believe that anybody can do this work.
Interesting. I'm always fascinated on the process, because I think that, you know, there's a lot of like, we build an opinion or we build a perception about what it would need to look like. Like if I was to be a medium, it would need to look this way, right? Or if I was to be a channel or whatever it is, it would need to look this way. And so I always get fascinated around people's processes, because I think in my experience, what I've seen is they're all so vast. They're all so different. Like there is no one way, right? Like even if we just use in contrast and in similarity, like Sheila, what's your experience when you do the mediumship piece?
It seems to be very similar to yours, because what happens for me is I'll get a certain amount of information. It's not like I'm having a full-on conversation. I'll get like a red car dropped into my mind, and I'll be like, okay, I don't know what that red car means, but you might know what that red card means because it has no meaning to me. So I can't always put the meaning around the messages that I'm being given. And just like you were saying, like, what does this headboard mean? You don't know what that headboard is or what that picture means, but Kim can certainly put context to it. And the more the client is aware that the conversation is really interactive and it requires their attention and requires their participation, it's not just me telling them everything, the more information can come for the client because it is interactive. I am the conduit from whatever I'm getting. And I
agree.
Yeah, you find the same thing. If you get someone that's just sitting there stone cold, wants you to prove something to them, it's a really hard conversation because I don't have all the information. I only have what they're giving me and I only have that to go on. So yeah, I think we're similar in that way, that we require interactive conversation.
I enjoy it. And I honestly will sit down when I'm doing a reading and I tell people, look, if you want a medium that is just going to sit here and spew things that you know and that you can validate, I'm not your girl. I'm the person that wants to get the messages. For you to spend the kind of money to come see me that you do, and to have me sit there and just tell you everything that you can validate and everything that you know, I said, those are going to come. I don't know you. I didn't know that Kim was even going to be on this call. I assumed so, but I didn't look her up. I don't know. And I mean, you have to trust me on that. I know nothing about that. I didn't know that she had a son that lost. And for me, for me to just sit and give you all this information that you already know, what good is that? You know that. That does nothing for you. I'm the person, I'm like, I want to get you a message. I want to get to the heart and soul of it. I want to have a conversation. You're here to have a conversation with your loved one. So let's have a conversation. Let's not just talk about, on your nightstand, there's, or your husband's slippers are still under the bed or whatever. You already know that. Why do you have to pay me to tell you that? That's just my ego. If there's, and that's the thing about evidential mediums that say, don't talk, just sit here and let me tell you and impress you on what I can do. I'm like, well, that's great. Fabulous. So the person walks away and go, oh, they knew so much. They were so fabulous. Well, that's about the medium then, isn't it? Did you get a message? Okay, you got one message. He loves you. He thinks you're wonderful. Oh, fabulous. Well, you already knew that too, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it's like interact, have a conversation. We're here. I'm available. I'm a conduit. I've got the phone. I am the phone. And I'm relaying the messages to you from your people. Let's have a conversation. And I think mediumship has changed in that. I think that people are going, wait a second, there's more to this than a medium standing there going, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. Are you good? Okay, great. Thanks. They love you. Off you go. Right? I'm like, that wasn't enough for me when I lost my son. It wasn't enough for me. I could go, I've had readings from amazing mediums and they told me nothing that I didn't already know. So yes, I can say they're a wonderful medium. They know that, but where is he now? What's he doing now? Let's have a conversation about, something that matters to me now. I knew that this is what he looked like and that's what he did, but what does he do now? Things like when I said to you, Kim, he's telling me my chest doesn't hurt anymore. Well, that's validating because that made sense to you, right? I was thinking maybe you had a football injury or something. Like Sheila says, I don't exactly know what that meant. I just know that I felt pressure and I knew that my chest feels better now. So the message was, my chest is better now, right? Like I'm not hurting. And if I was sitting with you in a private meeting, I would say, so he wants you to know, and we would talk about how his life is now as opposed to how it was then, right? And that's where, as a medium, where I like to go. It's not just saying, okay, my chest hurts. It's my chest is better now. And now I don't have to worry about feeling that pain. I don't have to worry about how it's affecting you and have that conversation, right? Because he would have gone. And right now he's telling me, that he would talk about how his issues and his disconnect, he's calling it, how his disconnect affected you as his mom. And that's where we would go in a private reading more, right? How you feel. And to me, that's more important because that's going to give you more value out of the reading than me just saying, oh, he liked to, or his favorite color was purple. And I say those are going to come anyway, and you're going to catch those anyway. But, it's more about the validations sort of just coming to say, yeah, I have your son here, but let's get to the message. And I think that's more important. And I think like Tracy, you were saying that everybody sort of gets it a different way. Some people are more clairvoyant, some are clairaudient. I laughed when you said, I'm not much of a medium, or you both say, like Sheila's a medium and you're not. And I'm like, you're both energy workers. So you absolutely are mediums. I don't know an energy worker that isn't a medium. It used to be, oh, everybody's psychic, but not everybody's a medium. And I'm like, if you've connected to somebody in the now, even once, then you can do mediumship. And anybody that does energy work that hasn't connected to somebody in the now.
Yeah. I love that. And, I think that brings up a really interesting point, especially for our audience too, in terms of what will be the right word, maybe it could be awareness or the discernment to bring forward when you choose to work with anybody, whether it's a medium or an energy worker or whatever that is, right? Because if I were to draw even on my own experience, and I haven't worked a ton with mediums, I've maybe had 5 or 6 different sessions in my life. But the one thing I do remember about pretty much almost every session, and not including the people that are sitting here right now, is that it was a session where all they did was the validation piece. And they would be like, oh, they're talking about this time in the past when this happened, or he said this, or whatever. And I always left the sessions and I was like, I was always like, oh, like I came to this session and all you did was tell me all of the things that I already knew. And I was coming to the session because I wanted to know what I didn't know, right? I wanted to have that interaction, or I wanted to know, do you have a message for me? Or is there any guidance you can give me? Or how are you doing? And where are you? And what does that look like? And that was something that I never really got. Kim, like, what's your experience with that?
Well, I've had good experiences because I've spent a lot of time working with Sheila. Sheila knows Tristan almost as well as I do now. But in the past, yeah, I can think of where I have gone to a few. Although I will tell you, I don't know, maybe I've just been really fortunate and been guided. I feel like I've been guided all the time, my whole life. I remember having a reading from this older woman in Saskatchewan. I mean, this is way back in the like early 90s. And she just used a regular deck of cards. And she was so bang on with who I was going to marry, the number of kids, what I was going to do for work. Like she was bang on. I mean, it didn't make sense, a lot of it, till years later. But when I look back, I was like, wow, like she was good. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, with my son, I think I had one reading with somebody, I can't remember who it was, but yeah, a lot of just validation of who he was, but not a lot of extra. But I know that the work Sheila and I have done, like we've had some crazy sessions, amazing sessions. And I mean, I get messages myself too, but I always like to work with somebody else just because I think sometimes, even though we do this work, we're maybe still not as open as we could be, or we have that self-doubt and that sort of thing. So as much as I can still get really cool, clear messages, very much like, the butterflies and the things you're asking for, I've asked for some really unique things and got them. But I really do enjoy finding someone who is good, very much like Sheila, who, I mean, we're getting information that it's stuff that I want to hear that I don't know about. And it's, for me, it brings in confirmation of what my intuition is telling me, but it also helps me to be more confident and trusting in the direction I'm moving in at that time.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I think that, there are people when they first come to a medium, especially if they haven't been to one before, they need validation, and that, you're going to give validation. That's why I tell them, don't worry, we're going to get some validation, even if there's 1 or 2 things that, like he likes purple, or there's something about your hair, or there's certain things that will come through. So I always tell them, you will get the validation to know that I'm talking and connecting with your loved one. So I think that's important. And Sheila, you probably find when people come for the first time, they just want to know that you can do this and that you're connecting to their person. The second time they come to you, or the third, or if they become a client, they want to sort of move into, what can you tell me now? But that first time, there is a huge amount of value in getting those validations. And I'm not saying that they don't need that, but I think it's like validations and not just validations, but we need to look. And I think mediumship is moving that way, more into the message rather than just look at me, look what I can do. And aren't I good at getting all these things, right? Going down the checklist. We all build a spirit dictionary, I call it. Sheila, you probably have the same thing, where there's certain things. If I am doing a reading and I see a dirty cap brim, to me, that's a farmer. So as soon as I see that, and I build that dictionary really quickly so that spirit can work with me. And it's like, I see that brim of that cap, I immediately know, oh, this person was a farmer, right? But everybody has that different. Like you say, it might mean something different to somebody else. If I see suspenders, I think of dad, because my dad wears suspenders all the time. But if somebody's grandfather wore suspenders, then it's not their dad, is it? It's their grandfather. So I can say that and go, I'm seeing suspenders. To me, that means dad, unless somebody that specifically wore suspenders, right? So there's different ways that we kind of, if I say the word apple to you, all of you might have a different, some might see red, some might see them cut up. For me, apple is teacher, right? But I also have to recognize that if I see an apple and they weren't an educator or a teacher or something, they might have owned an apple orchard, right? So there's always going to be some discrepancy in the sort of dictionary that we build anyway, no matter how good it is. So I think, people, the sitters, the people that are coming for readings, have to recognize that we are human and that we have our own frame of reference for the things that we're getting. So that's why I call myself an energy interpreter rather than a medium. I do put medium in there because people, energy interpreter, what does that mean? So it's easier to say medium, but I really consider myself an interpreter of the energy. And that is very personal to each person that's doing that work. All of us in this room are energy interpreters because we're all interpreting energy in specific and some to often the same ways. But that's what we're doing. It's all energy, it's all vibration. So we're just getting the information and interpreting it. It's like singing. Analogy that I use is everybody can sing. Some sing really terribly. Some are natural born singers. Some can be taught technically. Some can be tone deaf, but can still make sound, so we can all sing. People that are deaf can sing with their hands. We all do, because we can all do it in a different way. And it's no different for us interpreting energy. I think every single person can be taught or shown or recognized or acknowledge that they are interpreting energy, because we are. Every day we're interpreting energy. That's who we are as humans. We sense things, we feel things, we have emotions. It's all interpreting energy. Every single one of us have walked into a room where somebody is standing there with a smile on your face and you're going, they're having a really bad day. Or this couple just had an argument, even though they both have smiles plastered on their face. You're interpreting the energy of the room. And there isn't a single person in this world, on this planet, that can't do that. Right? We just, as practitioners, we've focused our energy a little bit more. We train, we practice, and we become more aware of what we're doing. And I think that's really what sets us apart from, and speak the language of it. I work with people and try to, I do workshops and stuff and teach this. And I have a group of ladies that I work with, and they're absolutely amazing at picking up the energy, but they have a hard time articulating it, right? So for them to sit and do a reading, if they can't articulate what they're feeling or what they're getting, then it would be really difficult. It's really difficult for them to do readings, where obviously, Sheila, all of us as practitioners, we speak the language of it, and we practice the language of it. So then we can articulate it just a little bit easier for people.
Yeah.
I think think it is important that you brought up, that it is still good to validate. I mean, not everybody believes or has
Exactly.
the beliefs that we do, right? And if you've never had an experience of anything, it's really hard to believe it. So yeah, there may be some people listening that are thinking, yeah, I don't buy any of this. I've lost loved ones. I've never had any signs, never anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the experience, right? But as you mentioned, we can all ask for signs. My belief is that in order to receive those signs, like you said, you have to be in a place of receivership. Well, what does that mean, right? And to me, it's about being in that high vibration, right? Being in that place of love and gratitude and joy and openness. And, maybe even adding some hope in there and opening your perspective. But when we're in that place of suffering, my experience is we don't often see, hear, or feel or sense the messages, even if they're right there in our face. So it can be very powerful. I mean, I know I have had some very unique, undeniable messages that, you just can't deny.
Yeah. And I think even in that space of grief, a person can get a lot. I know for myself, and as soon as my son passed, for those days afterwards, I actually stood in front of my mirror one day and had a conversation with myself. And this was just a few days after Travis had passed. And I was like, I am so connected to source, God, creator, whatever you want to call it. Right now, I felt like I had a direct line to God. And that was because everything that I had held as important in my life up until that moment meant nothing. What I looked like, what I ate, what my house looked like, if I had laundry, gone. In that moment of grief, it's like you get a reset almost, because you are so focused on yourself, your pain, and your person that's missing, that it's almost a reset in itself, because it's like your brain just cleanses itself of all these things that don't matter anymore. So I think in that space you can connect and you can get signs. And I think a lot of people do get signs in those first days. And then, life comes back and things start filtering in, and worry and stress and all that starts to filter in again. So then I think that's the space where it can be really difficult to get signs. And that's when people are really searching for them and come to people like us, right? A lot of mediums won't do readings right after somebody has passed. And I have done it, and it's really difficult because you have to be cautious what you say, because the person's in such a fragile state. But I think that they're really open at that point too, right? So I've sat at funerals and got so much from the person. I sat at a funeral one time and saw a grandfather hop around and kiss the tops of the heads of all of his grandchildren. And he even rode his casket out, and waving to people as he's going out. Like, I've seen that. I had a grandfather, sit at the front of the stage in a chair and look at me the whole time and wink at me while I was at the funeral, and so they're around us at that time, and they, they're around us all the time that we even think of them. But I think that there is that point right after somebody is gone, that if you're open to it, you can really receive a lot, because you are in that almost like a meditative state, right? Like your brain just empties out. You have only one or two things on your brain. But like you say, Kim, in order to connect, Spirit brings its energy down, we bring our energy up, and then we can connect with them. So I tell people, and I teach people, the easiest way to connect to your loved ones if you're missing them is get happy. Turn on some music, find your happy space, distract yourself, find something to be, feel gratitude for and feel joy for, because that's the easiest way to raise your vibration and get up there so that you can actually, they're giving you the information, they're giving you signs, they're trying to communicate with you all the time, but it's whether you're receiving it or not. And that's, yes, you're absolutely correct. Get your vibration up so that you can be in a place of receiving it.
I have a question just out of curiosity. I don't know if I have a set belief on this, and but about reincarnation. I mean, there's lots of different beliefs. Have you ever had an experience where through your work you have found or been told or got a sense that someone has reincarnated, but still they're very much in spirit? Have you had any experience or thoughts, beliefs on that?
That's a big subject for me, because I believe that we come back with, okay, so the easiest way, I'm going to go there. So the easiest way for me to explain this is we are source energy. So if you think of it like the sun or a big ball of energy, we're all come from this space. We are all part of this space. When we focus our attention into a human experience, it's like a ray of sun, right? And just one ray of light that comes out from that main ball of energy. And we focus our attention into a human experience. And by doing that, with us getting farther away from the ball of energy, that gives us contrast, right? So the farther you are away from the source, the more contrast you're going to have, the more dark you're going to see, the more shadow you're going to see, right? Because it's like you're focusing your energy in this ray of light. So I don't believe that we reincarnate fully, but I believe that we can have an experience that vibrates very closely to somebody else's ray. Or, you know, if you want to think of it in terms of music and a radio station, we can be on the same station and we can, you know, our song can be very similar to somebody else's. So we can pick up on a lot of the same things. But no, I don't believe that we fully come into a lifetime or an experience being fully the other person. You know, we don't continue on somebody else's life because you can't unknow what you know. So if somebody, my son was 6 years old when he passed, yours was 22. I don't think that somebody can come back as my son as an infant and start from that place and be him, because he was 6. He already had 6 years of experience. Your son was 22. There's people that are, you know, they say, oh, my grandfather died and my son was born the next day, so he's a reincarnation. That doesn't even make sense to me, because he's coming in as a fully new focuser into this experience to have his own experience. But because the environment that he's coming into is very saturated with that family member and stuff, and you still have that same environment, he may connect very easily to that vibration. So a lot of similarities may come. Does that make sense? You know,
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I was thinking more just broad term, not necessarily within the same family, but.
Yeah. And even more broad term. That's why some people, you know, it's been scientifically, it's like 2 scientists across the world can be studying the same thing for 10 years. And all of a sudden they come and they get the breakthrough the same within hours or minutes or days of each other. How does that happen? It's because as soon as the thought is out into the universe, thought is energy, has a vibration, every thought that we have. So this guy over here, it doesn't matter who does it first. As soon as the thought is put out there and 2 people working on the same problem, at the, you know, and basically going down the same line, they're going to be very in tune to each other, right? Of what's going on. So as soon as one has a breakthrough and gets it, it's in the universe, and the other one can pick up on that very easily because he's right there vibrationally, right? And they can be across the world. So that's how that kind of happened. And it's the same with people that, oh, you know, in a past life, I was terrified of snakes, or I had an experience with snakes. So you know, I come into this lifetime and I'm terrified of snakes. Well, you can have a vibration that's very similar to that lifetime. And as soon as you get to a fear factor and there's a snake in the room, it might trigger that because you're just picking up on it. But I think you're picking up on it through source. It's not that you're bringing it with you. Does that make sense? It's just you're vibrationally, you vibrationally tune into it so closely that it feels like your own experience or past experience, when really it was somebody else's experience. You're just tuning into it in this time and this space right now. That's sort of my belief. So even past lives, yes, we can tune in and we're all part of that. So depending on where you are vibrationally, you're going to be able to connect with the source and get the information. That's like us as mediums. We're connecting to that person in the now where they are, but we're not connecting out here in the physical. We're connecting through source energy. We're connecting through, you know, God, creator, that source that we all have connection to. So I think I have a different idea about that. And I know than a lot of people, and I've thought about that a lot, but everything to me, we come from source, we connect through source, and we all are energy and vibration, and that can continue on and it can change, but we can't go back and restart it. So reincarnation to me is picking up a vibration closely where they were because of where we are vibrationally now. But I don't think that a grandfather can just do a redo. He can't unknow what he already knows.
Thank you.
Interesting. Okay. Sheila, I feel like you have something to add or ask or something like that.
Well, I find it fascinating because your ideas come from your experience. You don't just come to a philosophy like that because I'm just going to make it up. You have a feeling and an understanding and a wisdom about what you're saying. And I think that's the most important thing that as humans we've lost. As humans, we've lost this connection to self, to know what is reincarnation? What does that mean to me? Well, Diane, you and I live in that world a lot. We see the experiences of others. We know what that energy feels like from the other side. It's hard for us to explain that energy. What does a past person feel like? How do they vibrate? What is that sensation? Well, for me, it's love. It is this feeling of love. And people are like, does this work drain you? I'm like, no, this work inspires me. This work makes me in the space of love where I might have missed out on that on a daily basis. But your ideas and your explanation for reincarnation is fascinating because I never thought of it like that, but I'm interested in it because I know that you work in that realm and that you have wisdom around what you're saying. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, thanks. And that comes from meditations and conversations with Travis, because I was interested in it as well. And I do a lot of journaling and writing to him, and I'll ask him questions. I'll start out, okay, let's talk about reincarnation today. And then I'll go into a meditation, and that clarity sort of comes to me. So through that process, and I question myself a lot on it, but at the end of the day, I have such a strong inner knowing that I have to stand in that power of that. And I know it can be uncomfortable for people, or, in situations where people have a definite idea of how this works. I have to allow, it's like, okay, that's your thought. Like I say, not everybody can understand the concepts. Obviously in this group, we're energy workers, and that's why I love speaking everything energy and with people, because my normal everyday people, they're looking at me like, the concepts are way out there for some people. And then other people that have thought this through, or I love seniors, because seniors have lived enough of a life that they'll go, okay, I kind of get that, because there's so many unexplained things that have happened in their lives that they've experienced, that they're a little bit more open sometimes, if they haven't had a strong religious indoctrination that keeps them kind of stuck in a box. But if you speak to seniors that will have conversations, after a while, they'll go, yeah, that makes sense, because, and then they'll tell you experiences that they've had. You go, that doesn't make sense, right? So I think everybody has to really, if you're interested in this stuff, go find out everything you can. It's like, read everything you can, see everything you can, but then go back to that inner knowing that you have. And if you go back there and go, oh, this is what I believe. It's like filter through all the information, listen to all the people that are in whatever level they're at of practitioner, but then always go back to yourself. When I do workshops, one of the first things I do when I stand up is say, I'm going to show you all different types of ways to connect with energy. I'm going to, we're going to be playing with energy, and that's what I do during my workshops. But it's only to give you reference points so that you can go in and use what works for you. And I always practice different ways of doing it. The other night, my wisdom sisters, I have a group, and it's called Women in Support and Development of Mediumship, Wisdom. That's the acronym. And we have a group that I sort of lead, and we have events and stuff. And it's all people that have gone through my advanced mediumship group automatically becomes a wisdom sister. And we have these practices every once in a while, like a circle. And the other night we were practicing because we have an event coming up next weekend. And I didn't know what we were going to do, but I had my laptop and one of the girls, I had forgot my cards because we practice with different modalities. And I had my cards and I said, okay, we're going to try this. And I just asked Travis, give me a way to work today. And we had a deck of one set of cards. And I said, we're going to do readings for each other, but this is what we're going to do. I'm going to bring somebody up on my laptop, a famous person. And I said, what I want you to do is read for somebody. So, okay. So Tracy, if I was going to read for you, I was going to bring up a practitioner, somebody famous on my laptop. I had my cards and I said, you have to use them as the inspiration to give the reading. So one lady was there and we brought up, who was it? Morgan Freeman. I had to think about it. So we put Morgan Freeman on. I said, so use Morgan Freeman. He's famous. He's done quite a few things. He's a narrator, all these things. So let's do a card reading. Pulled a card and it said, connect to your higher self. Well, right away, I saw when Morgan Freeman was playing in a show with, where he was God. He was a janitor, and he's in this big white room. Well, that's what came into my frame of reference right away. Out of all the things that he's done, that's what I saw was that room, him standing there as God, sort of looking over, going, and talking to, who's the guy that was in that show? He played the Grinch. He's
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was in that show and he's kind of looking, and Jim Carrey didn't believe that he was connecting with God in this scene that I saw, and he's in this room. And so I'm reading this and it says, connect to your higher self. Well, I could use that reference. And I said, okay, so this is the scene I'm seeing. And I'm telling this girl, you're obviously not trusting your connection to God. Right? So that was just a new way of reading. And that came to me just like that, because we're always practicing and learning. So that's what I say, try everything to connect, right? In that, it was just, I use that inspiration to get that connection. The card also said, higher self. So it was pretty easy for me to put those two together and go, you're not trusting in your connection to God. That was a pretty simple message for me. And we played with that all night. We'd bring different people up and the readings were just incredible. So I'm always learning and practicing and trying different ways to connect and never keeping it, in that box. That's why I say it's like explore it, play with it, have fun with your connection and see what comes. And you'll recognize over time by doing that what your superpower is, or the way that you see things, and the way that you grab the energy and get the hits just by practicing and playing with different modalities. It's so much fun. I enjoy it. And it just, it's so cool. And as practitioners, you're always trying to, you want to connect and you want to make it sharp and easy to do, but there's so many ways you can do that we can't limit ourselves at all.
I love that. And I think that that's one of the things I've actually learned over the last couple of years is to play, right? Because I think sometimes, especially if we're wanting to do this as a way that we offer it to the world, as our job, as our path, as our, way to be of service, is that we start to take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And when we stop playing and we start taking things too seriously, that's often when we actually just shut it off completely.
Yeah. Another good way is just, I use celebrities quite a bit. Another, when we practice and I tell people, if you want to connect, because a lot of people just, I don't know how to do that. It'd be great. And I said, go home, pull up your favorite celebrity, put them on a picture and sit and just try to get information. I said, write down just anything that comes to you. Right. And they might know things, but all of a sudden, I said, if a number comes, if a color comes, something or whatever comes to you, write it down. And I said, then Wikipedia them or Google them and see what information comes. And people will come back to me and go, oh my God, I got the number 23 and their birthday was on the 23rd. And they're just like, all excited. And I'm like, it's that easy, right? When you don't put a resistance on yourself. And if you don't block yourself from receiving the information and you just have fun with it, there's no resistance to that, right? Just playing with it. It's a little different than if I sit there and say, okay, my son died, bring me some information about him. You're just like, people would have a hard time doing that. But if you're using celebrities or you're using fun ways of playing with energy, they shock themselves how they can get information. And that's where it starts, and And I think we all could use a little bit more of tuning in and using our natural abilities to play and work in this world. And it would help a lot of kids with their anxiety, being able to control energy and all that kind of stuff. There's so many ways that it can help us in this world. So it's important work that we all do this and share it and teach people how to do it too.
Yeah. Beautiful. I just love this conversation today. It's been so fascinating.
I told you, I can talk for hours. I love spirit. I love to just explore and listen to other people and the way they do it. But like you can tell, I'm a talker and I love to articulate it and I love to speak the language of it. And it's just become my life. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The embodiment piece for sure, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. So Sheila, is there anything you want to add before the hour has just flown by, but is there anything that you want to say or add?
Well, it's like meeting an old friend, like when you're with another spirit and it's just someone that is passionate and, doesn't trust what you do and we trust what you do. I think it creates more momentum for all of us. I mean, you being here today has certainly created momentum for me in the work that I do, to have someone and know that, that we're doing the same thing. And we're not doing it from a place of darkness. We're doing it from a place of pure love. We have no other intention rather than to help and heal and honor the people that have passed. And, our work does get a lot of controversial things that happen with it. I mean, I have family members that don't want me in their home because of the work I do. So I know the beauty of our work. I understand the goodness of our work. And it's just wonderful to have you just reinforce that for me anyways today. And I appreciate all that you do and all the love that you bring to the world. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What we do. And like I say, just in any way of doing it, I tell people do it in whatever way you can and just, have conversations and the world will catch up. The world will catch up to this. It's scary for some people. And I always tell people I plug into the light. So, you cannot turn the dark on. You can only turn it off. Right. So it's like, I don't turn the dark on. I don't, I'm not, sacrificing goats or doing anything weird. It's like, I work all in light. I plug into the light and that's where I work from. Not that we don't discuss, difficult things or grief-filled things or problems that are going on, of course. But if you come from that place of love and that place of light and, it'll always be received well, I think. I've been fortunate too. I don't, maybe because I'm such a strong person, if I do have people in my life that don't like it, they certainly don't let me know it because everybody's very open to it. And my whole family, my husband's my biggest cheerleader, everybody supports it. So I've been fortunate in that. I am who I am and I have no problem just saying this is it. You don't like it, there's the door.
Thank you so much, Diane. I appreciate your authenticity and for all you shared today. And thank you for bringing in the messages from Tristan. I always love to hear what he has to say through others. So thank you. It was a pleasure to.
I do have to say there's something about leather. I don't know. He just keeps like at first it was like the leather ball. And now I'm just seeing like leather. I don't know what the leather is.
Well, I just recently started sewing and I was thinking of making a leather project, but I'm like, maybe that's the thing.
Okay. Because I asked him, I said, is there something that I can leave with your mom? Like, do you want one last message for her? And he's just like the leather. And so he sees what you're doing and he's like, okay. Right now he just went like this. So
okay.
Don't be afraid.
I'll just keep with the creative juices flowing. Thank you.
So cool. Thank you so much, Diane. It has been such a pleasure just to connect with you and to hear all of your, your experiences and your stories and how you're putting your work out into the world. And if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
The best way is just dianequartly.com. Go to my website and you can see everything there and connect with me through there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you so much. We so appreciate your time and your presence and your energy and all of your gifts that you've shared with us here today. And thank you to everyone watching, whether you're live or on the replay, and we will see you next week for another version of the Spiritual View. Take
Thanks
care.
so much.
Thank you. 1 second.